Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful, all-natural solution for one of the biggest problems in modern farming. Some people call it liquid gold for our soil, and it might actually be brewing in a backyard near you. We're talking about compost tea. We ask a lot of our planet, and it all really starts with the ground, right under our feet. Because of the constant use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides, we're seeing some pretty big challenges pop up. Things like soil degradation, the ground not holding water as well, and way more crop diseases. So it makes you wonder, is our soil just completely exhausted? And what if the answer wasn't just another chemical from a lab, but something totally natural, sustainable, and powerful? Something that's, well, literally alive. That's the huge promise of compost tea. It's a solution that connects the health of our soil right back to nature's own playbook. Okay, so to really get why compost tea is so exciting, we first need to get our hands a little dirty and take a good look at the problem it's trying to solve. So here's the deal. Modern farming has put our soil under an incredible amount of pressure. It's losing its natural structure and fertility, which means it can't hold on to water like it used to. That leaves crops really vulnerable to drought. And this weaker environment, it's basically an open invitation for more diseases, which just creates this vicious cycle where we end up depending even more on chemical fixes. All right, now let's meet the hero of our story. Let's break down what compost tea actually is. To put it simply, compost tea is a living liquid fertilizer. You take good, mature compost, you steep it in water, and you let the whole thing ferment. And what you get is this incredibly potent brew that's just packed with nutrients plants can absorb right away, organic matter, and, this is the most important part, a massive, thriving population of beneficial microorganisms. Honestly, it's less like a fertilizer and more like a probiotic for your soil. And this isn't some brand new idea. Farmers were using basic versions of this way back in the 1920s. But what is new is the science. Get this. Since the year 2000, there have been over 2,400 academic papers published on this topic. The science is finally catching up to what gardeners and organic farmers have known for decades. Now, there are two main ways to go about this. On one hand, you have aerated compost tea, or ACT. That's where you're constantly pumping air into the mix. It's fast, it only takes a few days, and it encourages all the microbes that love oxygen to grow, and those are often the ones that actively fight plant diseases. On the other hand, you've got the non-aerated method. It's a much slower process, kind of like a cold brew that can take a couple of weeks. It cultivates a whole different set of microbes that can work without oxygen. So, how do you actually make this stuff? Let's walk through a simple guide for the home brewer. Okay, the aerated method is for when you want results fast. First, and this is important, you let your topwater sit out overnight. That gets rid of the chlorine, which would kill all your good microbes. Then you get an air pump bubbling in the water. This is the key part. It's feeding all those oxygen-loving microbes. You just add your compost in a mesh bag, yep, like a giant tea bag, and let it steep for a day or two. A quick filter at the end, and you're good to go. Now, the non-aerated method is the super low-tech, patient person's approach. Same first step, dechlorinate that water. But this time, you just add the compost right in, give it a really good stir for a couple of minutes, and then just let it steep for 1 to 2 weeks, giving it a stir once a day. It's slower, yeah, but it's so much simpler. You really don't need anything more than a bucket and a stick. Okay, so we know how to brew it, but why should you even bother? Well, it's because compost tea is a legitimate triple threat, delivering some incredible benefits for your plants. First and foremost, this isn't just about feeding the plant. It's about rebuilding the entire ecosystem that the plant lives in. It's about creating fundamentally healthier soil from the ground up. So what does that actually look like? Well, the tea delivers essential nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus in a way that plants can just slurp right up. The organic compounds in it act like a glue, binding tiny soil particles together to create a better structure. And that means more air, way better water retention, and a whole diverse army of beneficial microbes ready to get to work. And of course, when you have healthier soil, you get the second major benefit, healthier, stronger plants. And the results, they can be seriously dramatic. Get this, one study found that cotton plants treated with compost tea grew roots that were almost 44% longer than the ones given standard solid fertilizer. Think about that. Longer roots mean a plant can reach more water and find more nutrients. That is a huge difference, and it all comes from changing how we deliver the food. And now for the third benefit, which honestly might be the most amazing of all. Compost tea doesn't just feed your plants, it actually protects them. This is just incredible. In one study, a tea made from simple leaf compost was tested against some really common tomato diseases. And look at these inhibition rates: 97% against tomato gray mold, 92% against fusarium, 73% against rhizoctonia. This isn't just a fertilizer, it's a powerful, natural biocontrol agent. So how on earth does it do this? Well, the science is just fascinating. The millions of good microbes in the tea are doing a few different things. Some of them actually produce natural antibiotics that fight off pathogens. Others simply outcompete the bad guys for food and space. And some can even trigger the plant's own immune system, basically putting it on high alert to defend itself. It's a multi-pronged defense system in a bucket. Now, with all of these amazing benefits, you'd think compost tea would be used everywhere. But there are still some big challenges to overcome before it can really go mainstream. So let's talk about the future. The single biggest thing holding compost tea back is a lack of consistency. Because there's no standardized, one-size-fits-all recipe, the results you get can vary a lot from one batch to the next. And that variation comes from all of these different factors. I mean, the compost you start with, is it from animal manure or just plant waste? That creates a totally different brew. The ratio of compost to water, how long you brew it, whether you add things like molasses, they all change the final product. Now, for a home gardener, that's kind of part of the fun, right? But for large-scale agriculture, that lack of predictability is a huge barrier. And so that leaves us with this one big critical question. The potential here is just undeniable. We have this powerful natural tool that can improve soil, boost crops, and fight disease without chemicals. So if we can just crack the code and create standardized, reliable ways to make it, could this humble home brew really revolutionize farming and give us a more sustainable future? That's the challenge and the incredible opportunity that lies ahead.